A juror who voted to acquit George Zimmerman in the murder of Trayvon Martin says she regrets the verdict. According to ABC, Juror B29 is a 36-year-old Puerto Rican woman identified only as Maddie. We know from jury selection that she's the mother of 8 children and recently moved from Chicago to Florida. She works in a nursing home as a certified nursing assistant, and she told ABC she wanted to convict Zimmerman of second-degree murder, but the law made it impossible.
George Zimmerman got away with murder, but you can't get away from God.
Anguished and apologetic, Juror B29, going by the name Maddie, told ABC's Robin Roberts that she favored convicting George Zimmerman of second-degree murder.
I'm the only minority, and I felt like I let a lot of people down.
Maddie says it was the all-female jury's interpretation of the law that ultimately led them to acquitting Zimmerman.
For myself, he's guilty. But as the law was read to me, if you have no proof that he killed them intentionally, you can't say he's guilty.
Anderson Cooper spoke exclusively to Juror B37 soon after the verdict about how they got to a not guilty verdict.
After hours and hours and hours of deliberating over the law and reading it over and over and over again, we decided there's just no other place to go.
After more than 16 hours of deliberations, Maddie says she struggled with the proof to convict.
How did you go from, in 9 hours, from feeling he was guilty of second-degree murder to not guilty?
In between the 9 hours, it was hard. A lot of us that wanted to find something bad, something that we could connect to the law.
Maddie concedes she still struggles with the verdict and the public outcry that followed.
I literally fell on my knees and I broke down. My husband was holding me. I was screaming and crying, and I kept saying to myself, I feel like I killed him.
What would you like to say to Trayvon's parents?
I would like to apologize because I feel like I let him down.
Well, Trayvon Martin's mother was crushed by the juror's confession, and in a written statement, Sabrina Fulton said this: "It is devastating for my family to hear the comments from Juror B29, comments which we already knew in our hearts to be true, that George Zimmerman literally got away with murder." Sabrina Fulton is scheduled to speak at noon at the National Urban League in Philadelphia, and she could use the forum to push for federal charges against Zimmerman. All right, let's bring in our legal panel now to discuss this. Attorneys Mo Ivery and Jeff Gold, and HLN's Ryan Smith. Nice to see you three here. Mea culpa is not exactly what you expect to hear from a juror. Mo, she clearly feels like she owes an apology to Martin's family. Does she?
Absolutely. And this is so hard for me because I'm still emotional about the verdict, and I don't apologize for that emotional connection at all. Now, the legal side of me understands her conflict, but I also felt like she was very much bullied by B37 in that deliberation, and I do feel like she could have been that one vote that made it a hung jury, which would have given the ability to retry George Zimmerman, and I do feel like she caved. So part of me is very upset with her, and I think that the apologies after are empty apologies. But then I understand her to be a mother of 8, and I feel very sympathetic towards her pain because I know that it's real, and I know her apology to Trayvon's parents is real, but I'm angry with her for not being strong enough to go against the bullies, the 5 others, and especially B37, where she could have been the deciding vote to retry him, and maybe the verdict would be different.
But Mo, in all fairness here to the jurors, it was clear they took their job very seriously.
Yes.
They went into that room, deliberated, looked at that law.
Yes.
Isn't that what they're supposed to do, to put their emotions aside, and look at the law and make that decision based on the law? And by the way, there were other jurors who came in and wanted to find him guilty of manslaughter, and they also changed their minds.
Yes,
so,
two others.
Wasn't she doing her job here, or do you think that she was really just bullied?
I think a little bit of both. I think absolutely that it is the job to go in there and look at the law, but how often does that happen? They're people. They have emotions. They consider things. Some come harder, some come less, less strong. And so you can't tell me that B37 wasn't going in there with her preconceived notions, with her ideas of what she wanted to happen. So yes, I understand the law of it, and I am not dismissing that. I am not dismissing the duty of a juror to look at the law and to apply it. But I do not want us to forget that these are real people, and when they go in and they think one way, they can come out completely differently based on the personalities in the room.
All right, so Jeff, let's go to you now. Do you think the jurors had other choices under the law, or do you think this was their only choice that they went with?
Well, I don't think they had any choice. I sat in that courtroom for most of the trial, and I watched this particular juror who really didn't pay that much attention compared to some of the other jurors, in my opinion. And I don't believe that she was bullied by the other jurors at all. I believe that this is a matter of buyer's remorse, that after the fact, she sees this as sort of black and white, no pun intended, and that she feels that she has somehow let other people down in the community. I don't think that she expressed herself exactly as she meant when she said that he got away with murder. I think she meant that he got away with a killing, and that killing isn't a good thing, and that even though it wasn't illegal, God will take care of it. I think that the media has taken her word using murder as if she meant something other than her actual words in the interview, which was she had to do this under the law.
No,
so I think the pressure after the fact, the protest, is what the bullying
right,
is.
and that's what I want to get to Ryan with. Hold on.
No,
let me ask Ryan this question, because there has been outrage since the verdict. These jurors were sequestered. They had no idea what was going on. There were all these protests. President Obama spoke out about this. Ryan, do you think the aftermath of the verdict might have contributed to her feeling this remorse and all this emotion and feeling so torn up, more so than the verdict? What do you think?
Absolutely, I think it did. And there's a couple of factors going on here. Like Jeff, I was in the courtroom. I saw most of the end of the case and the closing. And I saw her in that courtroom taking notes when the prosecution would make points on their PowerPoint. I thought she might be a voice for the prosecution in that jury room. But what this shows you is the push and pull that people feel. We like to say they're going to take emotion out of it, but it's impossible to take emotion out of a case when you have somebody who has died. So I think what happened here is, you talk about the gut feeling people have in juries. I think she walked in there with a gut feeling that George Zimmerman is guilty with something. But she looked at the law, she talked to her other people there in the jury room, and just felt the pull to go to the other side. Also, let's not forget, the jury came back with a question asking for specification on the manslaughter charge. The judge said, hey, come back with something specific, we'll answer that question, and they never came back with anything. Somewhere during that time period, there was some convincing going on in that jury, as happens often, and someone switched their position. She was one of them, and she said that.
And Jeff said that don't take her words that she didn't mean he got away with murder. Yes, she did mean that, and he did. So let's not say that she wasn't saying what she meant. He did get away with murder.
All right, Mo, there have been
he got away with a killing. It wasn't murder, and to say it was murder when the jury acquitted him is inappropriate. He was
got
acquitted.
away with murder.
Mo, we have heard death threats against these jurors. Again, they went in there, and as we saw, we've heard from two of them now, they tried to do their job best they can. What's your opinion about this, that these jurors went in, they did their job, and now they're facing all this backlash, even if you disagree with the verdict?
Sure, I think it's terrible. I don't think any of the jurors should be getting death threats. I don't think that they should fear for their safety. They were asked to come to do their civic duty. They did it. Whether you agree with the verdict that they came with or not doesn't mean that their lives should be put in jeopardy, or that there should even be any backlash from what verdict they did come back with. But it doesn't mean you have to agree with it. You don't also have to agree that the law was applied evenly or done, justifiably. Because
point made. Point made. We hear you. We hear all three of you. We appreciate your insight and your analysis, and we respect all of your opinions and perspective. Thank you, Mo Ivery, Jeff Gold, and Ryan Smith. We appreciate it. We're going to talk to a couple of you soon. All right.